Locations: Temerian Quarter. During the Summit of Mages and Monarchs, the camp of the Temerian delegation, led by John O'Talis, extended over an entire district of Loc Muinne. Plenty of diplomats milled around the camp, but soldiers were present in far greater numbers. Redanian Quarter. King Radovid and his men annexed the largest swath of the city in which to make camp. A full regiment of soldiers and an elite detachment of hand-picked knights protected Redania's ruler, who had every reason to fear an attempt on his life. Loc Muinne Amphitheatre. The amphitheatre in Loc Muinne was once the jewel of the city. Even stripped of its former trappings and ruined by time, it remained impressive. The Elves had used it as a theatre, a venue where troubadours performed, perhaps even as an arena for gladiatorial combat. During the memorable events recounted herein, it served as a site for a summit of mages and monarchs. Camp of the Order of the Flaming Rose. The Knights of the Order of the Flaming Rose, brought to Loc Muinne by King Radovid of Redania, had made camp at the city's gates. Tasked with maintaining order and providing security for guests arriving for the summit of mages and monarchs, they were keen to observe the traffic streaming into the city. Characters: Kimbolt. In pursuing their profession, witches meet individuals both warm and unfriendly, yet they are mostly different to the types with which they must deal, since they themselves can become so unpleasant that only tax collectors and sorceresses can rival them. Be it as it may, Baron Kimbolt made an extremely bad impression on Geralt. He was one of the most powerful individuals in Temeria, yet after Foltest's death his influence grew further. He was known to deal remorselessly with any who stood in his way. The sole thing that could be said in his favour is that he supposedly adored his hunting dogs. Yet he had to leave them behind when he travelled to Loc Muinne, and perhaps that had made him even more discourteous than usual. Why did Geralt put up with him? Well, Kimbolt apparently had something to do with the disappearance of Boussy, Foltest's son. In recounting the Baron's sins, one should add that he was also the one who had ordered Aryan La Valette tortured. He wanted the youth to confess in writing that Boussy and Anais had been warned of incestuous relations between Aryan and his mother Louisa. At that point the Baron's plans had been different, to become king based on his personal merits alone. Renuald eb Matsen. Just as Ambassador Shillet Fitz-Asterlen was the Emperor's mouth here in the north, Renuald eb Matsen was his ironclad fist. One look at the stern warrior's face was enough to instill a justified respect. He and his ilk became symbols of Nilfgaardian power when black standards and cloaks fluttered together with the tramp of the cavalry's hooves and the clash of arms in battle. The veterans from the Imperial Brigade were famed for their fanatical loyalty to the Emperor, and Matsen was no exception in that regard. He carried out his ruler's every order without question. Felicia Cori. In Loc Muinne Central Square, in addition to selling a variety of useful items, Felicia Cori also offered hairstyling services. Brigida. A none too significant figure, Brigida Paperbrock was a minor courtier who had the fortune or misfortune, depending on how one looks at it, to meet Vernon Roche. Though she lacked powerful friends, connections and patrons, she nevertheless managed to become embroiled in matters far beyond her capabilities. Brigida would surely have become the victim of a political murder if not for the help of the witch who agreed to escort her out of Loc Muinne. Brigida was unique in that she was the only adult to have survived the attack on the convoy transporting Foltest's children to Loc Muinne. Thus she had witnessed the events leading to Boussy's disappearance. The Incredible Lockhart. Expelled from the Ban Ard magical school for carousing and gambling, Lockhart was selling his magical tomes and amulets at quite moderate prices. Brass of Ban Ard. Human sorcerers have been fascinated with Loc Muinne from the very beginning, and Brass of Ban Ard was one of the many who wanted to fathom its mysteries. During his travels and research he had come into possession of several quite interesting weapons. He sold these to any whose pouch was deep enough to cover the expense. Falas. In business, the ability to adapt one's skills is half the battle. After losing his workshop, the former elven smith Falas earned his living as a sword swallower. How's he an elf? Elven swordsmith? Apparently a smith who makes elven swords rather than an elf who makes swords. And though clients were few, Falas still provided reliable services in his former profession. Ilona. A bearded woman is an exceptional sight, even if the beard is false. When there were no crowds, Ilona made ends meet by running a food shop. Marcus. Mighty Numer's assistant made money on the side by, among other things, selling healthy food, the foundation of a healthy diet. Maravel. Count Maravel belonged to that singular category of individuals who can strike a bargain with anyone, who are so pragmatic in their thinking that they can persuade, or at least in part, even those most strongly opposed to their viewpoint. Maravel thoroughly enjoyed the game of Temerian politics. He was an active and reputedly highly effective player, and in addition to being one of the country's most influential aristocrats, much like Baron Kimbolt, he had grand ambitions, yet he held them in check and was much more ingenious and precise in pursuing his plans. Boussy La Valette. The boy had died in mysterious circumstances, but the significance of this event was clear. Of Baroness La Valette and King Foltest's two children, only Anais remained alive. A young girl born out of wedlock, the sole and highly problematic heir to the Temerian throne. Aryan La Valette. Imagine the witch's surprise when he learned that the heroic youth had survived after all, and then turned to King Radovid of Redania for help in finding his sister Anais. Radovid. Unlike the proud and sometimes self-centered Foltest or the fitful, coarse Henselt, the king of Redania was a reserved, calculating politician. Geralt learned that he was not the sort of man that would allow himself to be deceived or led astray by prevarication. The king could instantly sense falsehoods and was gifted at maneuvering his opponents into revealing whatever information he desired. Radovid wanted to use Geralt to recover Anais La Valette, King Foltest's youngest child. Although she was oblivious to the fact, the girl was a trump card in high-stakes games. In a high-stakes game, the prize Foltest's legacy. Glossary. Other. Wild Hunt. Aramil, an elf from a parallel world, was pursued by the spectral riders to Loc Muinne, where he found a moment of respite. He left a missive according to which the king of the hunt desired to fling open the gates between the worlds of old time, so that chaos and terror might reign in our world as well. Culture. Elves. Elves, or Unshade as they called themselves, are a folk known for their beauty and longevity. Their sages, scholars and artists were at the fore of the fields, creating real breathtaking masterpieces. The glory of this elder race is long gone, however. After a series of bloody conflicts with humans, their cities were ruined, and the elves themselves were forced to retreat to the east, into unapproachable mountains, or to recognize human domination and accept their lot. Years of wars, persecution, and mutual enmity created a rift between our races. Many elves saw a chance of winning freedom in the last war against Nilfgaard, so they took up arms, creating the partisan groups of Scoia'tael. Though they managed to secure the creation of the partially independent realm of Dol Blathanna, some feel they were deceived and still wage war on humans.